Nicolas Cage is probably one of our generation's definitive actors.
Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. It's your main man, Andy Gillies here. Hope everyone's keeping well in the world right now.
Hi everybody, I prefer not to comment, just in case this ever comes back to us after watching this film.
Yeah, and I thought he was going to go with his new name that he's been dubbed. I think actually this will be the first airing of Andy's new alias, Andre Gillard, as the little Dan on the Fancast very conveniently put, and has now been renamed in everyone's phones on that group chat. So yes, from now on he's Andre and not Andy.
Andre Gillard.
Yeah.
I was fully expecting one of you cunts to fucking interrupt me as I was doing it, to be perfectly honest. Gentlemen, I've got a question. How much do you think about the Roman Empire? Because apparently this is a thing on TikTok at the moment. Some woman said that if you ask the man in your life how much they think about the Roman Empire, you'll be surprised at the answer. Stu, how much do you think about the Roman Empire in your day-to-day life?
Is this about Roman Reigns?
No. Like, it would make more sense if it was, wouldn't it? But apparently not. Apparently it is the actual Julius Caesar and Pontius Pilate and all that stuff, apparently. I don't know. But yeah.
I mean, not that often. I mean, I think about Spartacus quite a lot. That's a great series, and it was unfortunate what happened to him. But no, probably once a week, maybe.
Yeah. Matt, what about you? Are you more inclined to think about the history and the straight roads? Was it them who gave us straight roads? I don't even remember.
I don't know necessarily. I'd say I think about them a lot, but I've gone the other way now because I'm playing a lot of Starfield at the minute. I'm thinking about like technological advancements, and then I go back and think about the people that got us to this point. So I suppose maybe I have thought about them more recently, and then I've seen the trend. There are not a lot of positives to the internet these days, it feels like. But if people are learning, then we should embrace it, I guess.
But you don't even like Starfield?
Yeah, but it's also a really easy 1,000 X gamer score points, I'm told. So I just need a placeholder for FIFA, which has been pre-installed this evening. So I'm very excited, except it's not FIFA, obviously. So I'm just playing it just to see some time out, really.
Have you had a game on there yet, or is it literally ready to go when we've finished?
Oh, no, it's pre-installed, but it doesn't release until midnight in the regions that you're in.
Right, okay.
On the 22nd of September.
I get you. So is this going to be like how we still call it Twitter, even though the name is X? Is it still going to be FIFA going forward?
Yeah, I'll be in the cold, dead ground before I call it EAFC 24, like in casual conversation. It'll always be FIFA.
No one's going to say the EA part. Absolutely guaranteed. Within weeks, it'll be FC 24. That's what they'll call it.
It is a terrible name, isn't it? EA FC. I mean, that is not a good... Like, if you saw that on the shelves and you didn't know the history of it, it's not a very enticing name, is it? Let's be honest.
But FIFA themselves are bringing their own game out at some point. So that will cause extra confusion.
No one... He says this, but they still haven't got a developer for it.
Picture the scene, right? Now, this brings back PTSD memories, of when I specifically asked at Christmas years ago, and I'm talking years ago, for an electronic version of Battleships. Christmas Day comes around. What do I get? Plain old manual labour Battleships. Now, I wasn't like I wasn't a diva about it. I was thank you very much, thank you. But deep down, I was upset. Now, the same thing's going to happen 20 years on. Someone's going to go, Gran, can I have FIFA for Christmas? Of course you can, my little cherub. And what they really meant was EAFC 26. And what they're going to get is the Pro Evolution FIFA. Well, it will be the wrong game.
Might be the right game, though.
For the wrong reasons.
If they went back to that, instead of all this football shite that they've had for the last 3 years, because the guys who do all the editing stuff, they're still editing the data files and everything for Pro Evo 2021. Because it was the last one before they changed to eFootball, which is shit and online and doesn't work. So the last great game was 3 years ago, which they just every year update the kits and the logos and things.
Well, I was going to put this on Twitter, and I will use this format as an opportunity here. I would think that the women being included in Ultimate Team is going to be one of the best things for women's football in a generation, in decades, because I've been thinking about this. So many people now, young people, and I'm talking young as in 15 to 20 or so, barely support football teams anymore. They support players, and they just care about where that player's gone. And if people are made by stars by being on Ultimate Team, and I've watched some games like in foreign leagues purely because a couple of players that I use in my team are playing in that game, and they'll do that for the women's players as well, and it'll just get exposure, and it'll just get more eyes on the product and everything. I think when I think about it, I think it's going to be really, really good for the leagues, and I'll be trying to put a tweet out that explains this, but anything I've done about FIFA or anything has just gone down like a fart in church, so I'm waiting to word it better. But I don't know. What do you think on that? I know this isn't anything to do with what we're discussing, but do you share my optimism with that?
I do. It's stuff like that, and just a simple move from a lot of the women's games moving from BBC Two to BBC One. That sort of slight move, you can see the numbers are ticking up. Like I remember watching the women's game way back when I used to live at my mum's. There was the odd Euros or World Cup that was on then that used to be on BBC Two, and there was a handful of people who would watch it. But over time, it has slowly started to morph a little bit. You see the odd Super League game being played on TV now, and the crowds are reasonable. When it used to be a case of you might get 20 people, now there's a few hundred, maybe even a few thousand for certain clubs. So I think it's all just going to add to it. It's just getting more and more eyes onto it. And I don't think you're going to get more eyes than a game, because, as you say, people don't follow football. They follow footballers. So it's going to be exposing them to a world of the game that they've probably never even considered.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Lionesses are playing Friday night on ITV as well, Nations League qualifier. Why would I know that? Because I started following the Lionesses on Twitter because I got the bug, and I thought, okay, fine. I'll give it a go. And they stole our hearts in this World Cup, and yeah, fair play to them. I did find it funny though when one of the glitches in the testing stage came out, and because obviously you got men and women playing together, some of the celebrations are still there. So there's a bloke hugging her from behind on her tits.
Oh no!
This is not going all Russell Brand about things and alleging things. This was there for all to see. And obviously, certain things have to be changed and tweaked. And he was very tweaking, but it was all digital, so it didn't matter. But I thought, this is quite funny. They just didn't think that this was going to be a thing. But yeah, you're right. I mean, when they put it in, I mean, Ethan was playing some Ultimate Team equivalent on his phone in the pub yesterday before the game. I had no idea what was going on. He was just opening packs over and over again. But if you're throwing women in there as well, if you're getting a bit of Alex Scott and former Golden Girls in there, not them ones, then it's a great move. Fair play to them.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it, and my algorithm bloody knows it. Everything else is just it's just that related. It's just that time of year. So the important thing is, once again, I will not spend a penny this year outside of the game.
Yeah.
But no, I swear to God, the only thing that I might end up is if some unbelievable kit comes out, which will cost me like £3 to buy, which will be my kit for the rest of the game around Halloween.
Is this spending money on packs so you can buy players to put into your Ultimate Team? Right, okay. Yeah, see, I never really got into the world of online gaming when it came to FIFA and stuff, so it's all a bit past me, I think, that unfortunately.
Don't worry, dear listener, there is a very tenuous link with all of this to what we're going to discuss, by the way.
I mean, I I've played that game on and off for what 20 years. I've never spent a penny in there. That whole mode is just, it's there. It's not for me. I accept that. But again, that's good because they don't force it down your throat. Again, Russell Brand. But I do like how they've just kind of blatantly ignored the whole legal aspect of it, saying, "Oh yeah, it's gambling," and they just don't care. Because end of the day, if you're a kid on there, you've got to have your parents' account set up. That's their stupid fault. If they're not watching you, you're spending $2,000 on packs. Then sod you.
And I imagine that has happened then, hasn't it? Like kids have spent shit ton on it. Christ.
I think it happens worse in things like Fortnite and stuff, but I think it does happen.
Yeah, it's what there's no detail set up on there. It's like, well, get a certain amount of PlayStation or Microsoft coin or whatever it is for the equivalent amount of money on CD keys. Put it in. There's your code. Once it's gone, it's gone. No detail saved at any time. Just
Best
because
thing to do, innit?
When I do that for my own stuff as well because I can't behave.
Mm. And I imagine, like with hacks and stuff as well, you don't really want your personal details on the internet either. So that's probably a very good thing to have saved, isn't it?
Hence the reason why I have a Monza card for DHgate. For those exact reasons.
For your OnlyFans subscriptions.
Yeah, DHgate. Yeah.
I think that leads us nicely onto the film we're going to be discussing today, which is Snowden. Right, do you remember Snowden, the WikiLeaks and all that nonsense? Do you remember the real world when all of that went down? Matt, I mean, obviously, it's all happened in our lifetime, so... Yeah,
I remembered it, but I was blurring the lines between that and that Assange guy.
Yeah.
So it all kind of bled into one, really. And I really fought against myself to like do any Googling ahead of, like, because I really wanted to know prior to watching the film. But I didn't, thankfully. I did afterwards. But yeah, I was getting a bit mixed up, and then I was like, "Hold on, is this anything to do with Epstein and all that?" And it all got a bit blurred lines, to be honest.
Stu, do you remember that? I mean, you're a bit of a conspiracy nut, so is this in your wheelhouse of conspiracy theories?
Not back then, I hadn't embraced I hadn't opened my mind to the MSM taking over. I remember it happening. I didn't really care for it though. But I don't remember this film at all.
No, I vaguely remember them talking about them they'll be making a Snowden film. A bit like when we discussed the 9/11 film. I remember the conversations about it, but I've got no real recollection of the film itself being released. And especially when you look at the cast in this movie, obviously Nick Cage, which is why we're watching this one. But you've also got Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Shailene Woodley, Melissa Leo, Zachary Quinto, Tom Wilkinson, Rhys Ifans. It's directed by Oliver Stone, who also did the 9/11 film. I mean, that's a solid cast to have in any film. Like, a lot of them don't spend a lot of time on screen, which I'm sure we'll discuss as well. But Stu, tremendous cast, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think I was more upbeat about World Trade Center than you two were. Just for what it was rather than a remake of the event. But yeah, I think Gordon-Levitt's he's kind of vanished there. He's kind of vanished off the face of the earth. He had that whole the Robin era, and then he's gone. And I don't know what's happened to him.
Yeah, he's gone quite low key, hasn't he? Because he was a bit of an indie darling, and then, like you say, he became a Robin of sorts in the Batman film, and like he then started to do a lot of producing. And I remember was it Hit Record or something, where he was sharing other people's artistic endeavours, and he tried to do a lot of other things, but he almost vanished as well. Matt, JGL, a fan of his work?
Yeah, but just looking through his filmography here, I mean, 50/50, it was a bit of a sleeper, wasn't it? But it was a really good film, 50/50. A proper tearjerker. There's one scene in particular that gets me going every single time. Absolutely like like that at one point. But yeah, it's has just kind of gone off the face of the earth. Really, had all of the tools to be that kind of Oscar baiter, like. But yeah, not hopefully out of personal choice more than anything. But he's got that weird technique of he's very stoic in everything that he does. But that doesn't make him boring to watch either. But you're not getting a lot, much like Keanu Reeves in parts. Like he can be emotional without having an emotional face, I guess. Much so in this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Stu, have you got any films of his that you particularly like? I mean, 50-50 is a great shout by Matt. Is there anything that stands out in his filmography for you?
I am gonna say Dark Knight Rises just for the sake of it, actually praising it for once and not slagging it off, because he is very good in there. As is pretty much everyone anyway. But yeah, I mean, maybe he was disappeared because he was in this film. Who knows? But I only saw 50-50 about 6 months ago.
Oh wow, okay.
It was another. I mean, who else other than you is going to watch something like that? Really?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It doesn't sound the most enticing of films when you find out it's about a cancer sufferer who's got a 50% chance of living. Like, I get it. But it's a great film. The one I would recommend, going back into his history a little bit more, is from 2005, Brick, by Ryan Johnson, who I am a massive fan of. And obviously, if you like the Knives Out films, it's like a very early prototype Knives Out with Gordon Levitt playing a detective of sorts, albeit a studenty one. But yeah, Brick's a tremendous film, well worth a watch.
Oh, he was in that Trial of the Chicago 7, which was in my my top 5 in the first year we did this.
Yeah, that was a cracking film. But ever since then, there's a lot of like cameos and voiceovers by the looks of it. Not a lot of other work, unfortunately. But
is it his voice though as well?
Wow, who knows with this AI that's going on at the moment. We discussed Oliver Stone last time, so I don't think we need to retread that one. I think we were all a little bit hit and miss with the majority of his work. It's either really good or not really there. So IMDb describes this film as the NSA's illegal surveillance techniques are leaked to the public by one of the agency's employees, Edward Snowden, in the form of thousands of classified documents distributed to the press. So this is a dramatisation of events which happened between 2004 and 2013. Edward Snowden is taking some clandestine meeting in a hotel room in Hong Kong with some journalists. He's paranoid that he's being tracked and that the room has been booked. Snowden begins to tell his story. In 2004, Snowden fractures his leg whilst training for the army, being discharged. However, wanting to still work for the betterment of his country, he applies to work for the CIA. After impressing the Deputy Director O'Brien, even though his answers in the interview weren't sufficient, he does still get hired. Upon arriving to the training at the Hill, he meets Hank Forrester, which is Nicolas Cage. They have a short conversation which establishes Snowden as being a fan of code cracking. Also, whilst at the Hill, Snowden is educated in cyber warfare. Snowden impresses his peers. Cut to Snowden meeting a woman called Lindsay Mills in a coffee shop for a date. This scene does the cardinal sin of cinematography for me. Whenever two people, if they're texting or in this case they met through online dating, and when these meet, they show the chat bot, and there's literally one message, which was the first message that they sent way back when. So like they're supposed to be meeting now. What we assume is at least 6 months. His legs have been broken and fixed, and there's been no conversation. Like, I hate it in film when you see a kid texting their mom, and it's got like mom, and it's literally the first text. Like, how have you never spoke to your mom via text before? Really fucks me off. And they did it in this, and it grinds my gears. That one does.
Yeah, it's not like they've even just got like they're each other's numbers, and they've just been texting the whole time. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just straight away, bang in with those are the messages, and telepathy has brought them together.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So Snowden is dating one of those lefty liberals who believes that the war in Afghanistan was questionable at best. Snowden learns about the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, an act to circumvent the Fourth Amendment allowing judges to issue warrants in secret classified courts. We're back with Hank Forrester, who tells Snowden about life in the CIA, how he built some fancy surveillance system that would have targeted the bad guys, but kept those who weren't terrorists, they would have remained unspied upon. His system was overlooked in favour of some system which ended up being a mess. Forrester reveals that all that matters is that the money keeps flowing throughout the government. It's 2007 now. Snowden gets his first posting abroad. Whilst working in Geneva, Snowden meets Gabriel Sol, who shows Snowden software he should not have seen. A sort of Google, but rather than searching the internet, it searches through everything, everywhere, all at once. Also, whilst in Geneva, he begins to question the ethical implications of the work, as he's ordered to get his target drunk and then put him behind the wheel of a car, so they could use a DUI to coerce information out of him. This causes Snowden to resign from the CIA. That's about 45 minutes into this film, and that's a good place to take stock, actually. So, Matt, what do you think of the beginning, almost of this film?
Yeah, so I mean, I texted you too, saying about how like a genre has been unlocked in this kind of film, and I was enjoying it. I really was, but it is slow going. Like the whole film is slow going. There's very little escalation really in the film, maybe until like the last 15 minutes or so. But it was intriguing enough. It was paced nicely. It was a slow pace, but it was paced nicely. I liked how the moral dilemma of what he was going through was at play with the guy, Sol, was it? Did you say? Sorry, who was the guy who was kind of showing him the seedy underbelly, and you can just see the ticks of his mindset changing, really naturally done in this film, which I thought was good. So yeah, I was enjoying it. Just looking forward to seeing how that progressed and escalated.
Stu, how are you getting on?
I'd like to add for all the dodgy stuff that was going on, they were showing. I mean, Reese Evans was superb in this.
Yeah,
and I know he's pretty good in most things anyway, but I thought he was exceptionally good. How they kind of didn't show it as they kind of rah America can do what they want. That there is a kind of reason behind this in a way, but then at the same time they're just blowing kids up, which okay, yeah, fair enough. So you got people in the same building at the same time, and then you got him with these moral dilemmas, like Matt said. And I like how when he's we'll come back to it after, but the first scene with Cage where he's in there with all the where he says the Enigma machine, no. And I thought, I watch you 571. Even I know that's not the Enigma machine. Yeah, I loved it. The whole thing, this is completely my bag. I mean, we kind of knew what we were going into anyway, but I didn't expect it to be as good as this. And every single character I was kind of invested in, which is weird because there's always at least one that you hate or there's letting the side down a little bit. But no, they were all great so far.
Yeah. I think I'm sort of in agreement with Matt on both of you to some extent on this. Like, it's perfectly fine at the beginning. It's very slow paced, maybe to a fault. The film critic Mark Kermode refers to a moment in the what's her name? The Carpenter's story. So it's the moment where she sort of goes from being a standard person to thinking that she's fat, and he calls it the chubby moment. So someone says something about the chubby drummer, and she just looks at the camera as if to say, what, me? And then she ends up suffering from bulimia. There's a few chubby moments in this film where it's like she's planted the seed that actually the left are the right people in the world at the moment. And also there's the bit where he just he gets shown this clandestine system on being able to search everybody's emails in the world. And he almost looks at the camera and winks and goes, oh, remember that one, lads? That's coming back in. There's just little bits like that. They're a little bit cheesy, but I don't think it ever oversteps that mark. I think he takes it right up to it just to make sure you don't miss those moments, I suppose it is. But for the most, I am generally enjoying what's going on throughout the film. Like you say, most of the actors are all really good. There's nobody particularly letting the side down as it's going on. So yeah, it's solid. Maybe unspectacular though so far.
That's fair.
Do you think it was more because they're talking about a subject so serious and quite complex in a way as well that they are dumbing it down for the morons who've been dragged along to watch this?
Yeah, I do think that. And I will come to why I think that as well as we go on. But yeah, absolutely do. Yeah. In 2009, Snowden was working in Tokyo for the NSA. America were under the pretense of helping the Japanese back up their servers, whilst the NSA was there actually spying on people out in Japan and setting a trap. So if the Japanese ever turned against the Americans, the US would have the power to shut down Japan. It wasn't unique to Japan. The US were doing this in other countries and not just the ones hostile to the United States. The stress of this job causes the end of his relationship with Mills. 3 months later, Snowden returns home and then gets back together with Mills. So I'm not entirely sure what the point of that was. If it's historically accurate, like, fine. But you're telling a story, it's not particularly relevant to go from, one extreme back to the other, I thought, with that. O'Brien tells Snowden about a new software being developed in Oahu to counterattack Chinese hackers. Snowden and Mills decide to move to Hawaii. Snowden finds out that the work he did in Japan is being used to provide real-time data to assist in launching lethal drone attacks in Pakistan. Snowden has become disillusioned with the work he's doing when he sees how much data is being covertly taken. 3 billion emails and texts intercepted in the US, with only 1.5 billion from Russia. They are spying on their own people, not the people of the world. And seeing the Director of Intelligence lying to the Supreme Court was just too much for Snowden. Generally, the American government was just massive cunts to everybody at this point, but mostly to its own people. And then discovering that the people whose side he was on were spying on him and Lindsay too. Snowden had hit his limit, and this is when we see Snowden put the tape across his own webcam. Do you ever, like either of you, do you ever think about putting tape across your webcam? Do you ever think in the back of mind, well, I better make sure that just in case Russian hackers are looking at me, or most likely the American government?
I did think that after watching this, and I was thinking, but then no, because it's like anything though, like all of these mad conspiracy theorists, that if they really wanted it wouldn't be in something as obvious as my webcam camera or my phone camera. Do you know what I mean? Like there'd be a camera in the telly already, or well, maybe there is. Or if they wanted to, if they wanted to sterilize us all, so everything, it would be in the water, not in a COVID jab. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just all those things. I just think to myself, being silly here, like if it was really like that, Metal Gear Solid 2 style, then it'd already be being done in nothing as obvious as my webcam camera. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is how they get you. They're praying you not believing the man. I remember this being a thing though at the time, about the whole tape over your camera thing, and it was a podcasts back then it was a massive thing. Well, YouTube shows more than anything else afterwards when it came out. There was a massive thing about when the new laptop had come out, and it came with a shutter that you could push across. Yeah, and I remember that I don't think I've still got one. That was a massive selling point because it was data protection. And so then you go, well, if you haven't got a shutter on your webcam, why have they made it for? And you had all that whole thing. My whole thing was, and they say it in this as well, doesn't he? When he's having a go at her when she's doubting more his madness and his he's getting all fret up about things, and she's, oh well, I'm not doing anything wrong. Well, that's not the point, is it? And I said, well, for me, that's always been the point. I really couldn't give a flying fuck if anyone wants to watch my sad life. That I don't do anything remotely interested enough for anyone to care about. So they can spoil me all they want. They probably are. I mean, we know for well that their phones are listening to you and they follow your messages because that's how ads work on things like Facebook and anything on Chrome. No one really cares. And like I remember in the COVID times when they were selling them Facebook portal cameras to put on top of your telly.
Mm.
I thought, well, you're just asking for trouble because that is literally a wired camera in your house that can watch you at all times. But again, who really cares?
Well, I mean, inundated, especially on so I have 2 email accounts that I use that are very much my, like, if I just need to sign up for something quickly or a guest account or anything like that, I just throw that in there just so it's done. On one of those accounts, all day, every day is just scammers, hackers, or like, you know what I mean? It's been, you know, you can put your email address in and see if you've been done, like if it's on a database of that, and it's infected to high heaven, this email address, like, but I don't care, nothing's personal and nothing sign in with that. Anyway, I constantly get emails saying, oh, sorry to inform you, but I've taken over and I've been watching you wank, basically. I get them all the time, and it's like, I just find them hilarious because people's obviously still worried about their online presence and this kind of stuff, and it's always the same thing. It's always like, listen, like, I've got videos of you watching seedy things, and it's like picture in picture with you doing the deed. Send me XYZ Bitcoin, or I'm going to release it to the world, to your friends and family. And there's 2 facets to this, really. One is, if I can make money, if people cared enough that about it, that someone's willing to blackmail me about it, then if someone wants to pay me to do it, then maybe that's the career path I need to go down. And B, it's always like, the world would love to see what it is that you're into, and you'd be ashamed. Well, let me tell you now, it's short-haired blonde goth girls. So there's number 2. So I just find it hilarious that, like, that's still a thing. People's privacy online is like, hackers will use it and scammers will use it and stuff like that. It's just kind of an indictment of the world we live in.
Yeah, there's been no progression in the last like 20 something years, has it? It's still going after the exact same sort of people, isn't it? Like, yeah, it's kind of pathetic. Like I say, if anyone wants to watch me in my day to day singing like the fucking Barbie soundtrack or something, crack on, mate. Like, there's nothing that interesting going on out there, but it is what it is.
You need to go on incognito more though, because the only thing I ever get is there's things where you say your Prime subscription, and it's like it's spelt slightly wrong, so and it's got like a little accent above it, so that I think, well, you're clearly not right, are you? But for people who are not savvy with this stuff, you can see how they get tricked and caught out. It's like the Nigerian prince for the 2020s.
I don't think what helps is that I reply to them quite often. I like lead them down the garden path for a bit. I've done it on like the cage fighting email address a few times and shown you. So it's probably doesn't help. I'm probably on a database of people that reply, and that's like, I'm inundated with it now.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, the cage fighting email address, like, there's a lot of shit in there, to be honest. I don't know if it's because it's a podcast, so they just get all and sundry sending any old advertising nonsense to us. I don't know, but there's a lot of shit in there. So yeah, fill your boots, Matt, if you want to lead some people on, crack on. Snowden sets his plan in motion. He emails a documentarian and plans to steal evidence from the base of operations. He copies files onto a micro SD, which he hides within a Rubik's Cube and smuggles it out. We cut back to the present day in the hotel. There's been clips throughout the film where they've gone back and forth, like to the hotel and then back into the past, and jumping back and forth. Some like they really try to push this element of tension into the modern day stuff. There's a lot of like quick edits going into the corridor of, oh, is that a maid or is that the US government coming for him? And like, they're really trying to ratchet up the tension throughout this. I've got to be honest, I didn't think it worked. I don't know if it's because we know this story comes out.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to really think, oh, will we find out what's going to happen? Like, we fucking know what happens. Edward Snowden's name is really quite a famous name in the world at the moment. So, I thought that was a bit bizarre. They then show They then show Snowden and the journalists watching the news. The news anchorman talks about the news being leaked about the US government hacking people's phones. The fucking level of irony they must have considered to have Piers Bastard Morgan talking about phone hacking is incredible. With the report out, the US government wants Snowden to stand trial and asks the Hong Kong government to extradite Snowden. As they begin to close in on him, he escapes, landing in Russia, where he has been ever since. We get one last look at Nick Cage's character, Forrester, excitedly proclaiming, "The kid did it." The film ends with Snowden talking via the internet to a room full of people. The camera then does some trickery-pokery, and we see the real Edward Snowden replacing JGL. The end. What did you think of the end, Stu? The last hour or so in it, how were you fixed, or weren't you?
Yeah, I think you are kind of spot on that, because there's no jeopardy, because we know that there's no jeopardy. I like the Rubik's Cube thing, even though it's apparently not real. But it was a nice way to do it, considering that they don't know how he did it and he's not going to tell anyone. But I thought how that was worked into it was very very Spy Kids 3D of them to do that kind of thing. And it worked. And obviously you're going to be friendly with the security man anyway, so why would he doubt you? But that whole section in when you're waiting for the files to transfer over, I thought that was actually really well done, that part.
Yeah.
And I did enjoy as well. I mean, I'll come to it in the Good, Bad, Crazy later, but there was certain sections in that building that even though it was very 24, it was very believable as well at the same time. The whole thing about going outside with the bugs and everything before he leaves on his adventures, I thought it was a bit tropey, but again, you're going to get that kind of thing in this kind of film. And like I said, it's a dramatization. It's not a scene for scene remake of his life. But yeah, I liked the bit. I liked how they had the little robot version of him on stage. I thought that was pretty cool. And when that was one of them things at the time, when that did happen quite a lot, which was weird. How it was a precursor to let's just get video calls on a screen. Now let's have someone turn up as like Johnny Five with a big screen on their face, for no apparent reason whatsoever. But yeah, and fair play for obviously they had to get clearance for him to actually be in it himself, which I didn't expect. So that was a nice surprise.
Matt, did you enjoy the second half of the film as much as you enjoyed the first?
Yeah, I think for the most part it was. I think the difficulty is actually they could have skipped quite a bit of context. I would have preferred them to have done more with him in his exiled state, and even like talking about because there's a bit at the end as of filming or as of release, whatever it is, he's in Moscow and his missus has come and joined him, and that fine. The far more interesting side of this film, from a purely I don't know how to put it, thriller point of view, I guess, is the build up to blowing the doors wide open on it, and then him being an enemy of the state. And I think a bit more about that would have just ticked that box a little bit more than it being that slow pace plodding along. A little bit more of that and a bit less of the build up at the start wouldn't have hurt, I think.
Yeah, in complete agreement, to be honest. I think it feels like there's a bit of story left untold towards the end rather than what we're given at the beginning and middle, especially in a 2 hour 15 film. Like it did feel like it was a 2 hour 15 film, I thought, at points. It wasn't. Yeah, it could have been snappier, and I think they could have put more in there. But it is what it is. Right, so the budget on this film was a healthy $40 million. The box office return was only $37.7 million worldwide, so it didn't even get its budget back on that one. The movie was released on September 16th, 2016. Just to prove how fucking dreadful the Razzies are, Nicolas Cage was nominated for the worst supporting actor for this film. Like, he's barely in it. That's just, well, it's the fucking Razzies for you, though, isn't it? In 2016, Nicolas Cage starred in 5 films. We have watched 3 of them at this point. So, obviously, we've seen this. We've seen The Trust. Do either of you two remember The Trust? I had to fucking check it because I'd completely forgotten.
The Trust. Is that the one with the rapist? The rape, and he has to try and help the rapist?
No, that's Rape, a Love Story, or whatever it was called, yeah.
The Trust? Hold on, it's not the one where he is accosted in the hospital.
Even I don't remember that one.
And he ends up throwing a camera off a bridge or something like that.
Oh, no, not that one.
No,
it's the one. Do you remember it? Or
No.
So it's the one with Elijah Wood where they play a couple of bent coppers.
Oh yeah, I like that one as well.
Good.
Yes.
Was good.
I had no idea. I had to check the pictures on IMDb because I'd completely forgotten about it.
It's got a terrible name.
Yeah. The other film we've watched, I'm sure you'll both remember, Army of One. Oddly enough, starring Russell Brand, which has been big news this past weekend.
Awkward.
Yeah, just a little bit. So we still need to watch the USS Indianapolis Men of Courage, which honestly, it looks fucking dreadful, and that's one of the worst names of any film I've ever heard. And we also need to watch Dog Eat Dog, which is a film headlined with Nick Cage and Willem Dafoe, directed by Paul Schrader, and I am a big fan of Paul Schrader, so I do have low-key hopes on that one. We discussed it after the 9/11 film, that film was made, if I remember rightly, it was made like within 6 or 7 years of the event happening. This film was made within 3 years of the Snowden unveiling, so to speak. Stu, should they have left a bit more time to make a bit more impact, or is it best to strike while the iron's hot?
I mean, he didn't work, did he? If they didn't make the money back. Obviously, it's not been advertised very well either, so I presume the budget was pretty low on that for marketing reasons. And again, you're making films like this, then what you go down that whole rabbit hole then of, do they really want to make this? Do people really want, do the corporations want this story out there even more than it already is? Is that why it didn't make its money back? But watching it 10 years later, after the actual thing all blew up in the first place, was a lot more impactful than I think I would have watching it back then. Mm-hmm. Because it's historical, and there was stuff in this that, obviously because it was only 3 years out from when it happened, that it makes it into a period piece in a kind of uninverted way, which makes it a lot better than it probably was at the time. So I think there's probably an argument for that, for leaving historical things like this alone for a while. But then who's going to go and watch it that far down the line? Yeah.
Matt, what do you think?
I think something that is involved in like a tragedy needs to have time to breathe. But I think if you asked, if this was Family Fortunes or if this was Pointless, it'd be, it could be a pointless answer. If you ask somebody like about this whole scandal, I bet 9 out of 10 people, 95 out of 100 don't even know that it existed. So I don't think it really matters either way, to be honest, with this. But if it's a tragedy, I think it does need time to breathe.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. I think Stu's right in that it probably feels more prescient now with that a little bit of time, because we've experienced the world post-Snowden to get a little bit of context. But would people have given a shit about this film now? Probably not. And they didn't give a shit about it then, looking at the box office numbers either. So, yeah, who knows? The jury's out on that one for me personally, but I can see both its merits and demerits for that. Matt, what were the scores on the doors, both critically and audience-wise, do you think?
I think critically will be okay, like 6 or 7. I think audience will be pretty bad, because I think like this is the kind of thing that people will look for to slam, because it's disgracing the good old red, white, and blue.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? So I'd probably say like 4 or 5 or 40, 50 for audience, and maybe 6 and 7 for critic.
Stu, what do you think?
I'm in a similar kind of ballpark as that. I think critically, it's one of them things. I think it probably did enough to get 8, maybe. Audience, no, because again, as we always go back to the same thing of, has anyone ever spoke about this before? And I know obviously we're not the center of the universe, even though we should be. I've never heard of it until you mentioned it 2 weeks ago. So I'd go 5, 6 for audience just for that reason alone, because I've never heard of it, never heard it promoted anywhere, never seen it on Amazon sales or them kind of thing, them 3 for 20 quid Blu-ray offers that you get sometimes, never anywhere. So yeah, I'll go for that.
Interesting. So the critic score, so the Rotten Tomatoes critical score was 61% and the Metacritic score was 58%. IMDb has got it as a 7.3 and the Rotten Tomatoes audience score is 70%. So, I mean, not like amazingly, don't get me wrong, but yeah, higher than all three of us would have expected by the sounds of it. So the critic response, Elena Lazik from Little White Lies. Yet, although Gordon-Levitt's presence helps to keep us invested in the story, you'll be left wondering how this dull, overlong film might have turned out in the hands of a less bombastic filmmaker. Wendy Ide from The Observer. Snowden's intellect is most effectively conveyed in Gordon-Levitt's eyes, watchful, sober, and clouded by doubt. They are a window into his impossible ethical quandary, which I think really you touched on earlier, Matt, about Gordon-Levitt as an actor. That's generally what he brings to the table, isn't it? Charlotte O'Sullivan from the Evening Standard. Stone's film is about as suspenseful as a trip to IKEA. And Peter Bradshaw from The Guardian. It's a forthright attempt to engage with this fascinating, opaque figure and shows what it cost him personally. The fan responses were pretty positive on Amazon.com. 4.5 after 2,447 votes, with 88% 4 or 5 stars. Roger G gave it a full 5 stars. Well acted and amazing story. So sad it's true. The West has had their day. I'm sad to say that we need more whistleblowers like Snowden to stop the powers that be. We must remember that there are far more of us than them. United we stand, divided we fall. Laura didn't like it, though, with a 2-star review. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, the actor who played the part of Edward Snowden in this biopic, came across as an absolute lightweight, making the film unwatchable. He stole the show, unfortunately, in a negative way. I don't know what he was trying to do. Maybe he thought wearing a pair of Snowden-type glasses would have been enough to compensate for his overacting, underacting. He came across as an egotistical, amateur, geekish nerd, which Snowden is not. Someone should have asked him to watch the documentary Citizen 4 to give him some idea on the person he was supposed to be portraying. I usually love these biopics, but what a waste of time and money. The film will stay with me for a long time for its awfulness. I gave it 2 stars out of pity. That seems a bit harsh. Stu, what's the good, the bad, and the crazy on this one?
I mean, that's got to be the lowest review we've ever had of anything on here, from Amazon.com.
Yeah, it's not a good one.
Very harsh. But good. I thought it was a pretty decent film. I really enjoyed myself watching it. And I thought that they did it. They did it as much justice as you could possibly can in a dramatisation, I think. Obviously, it's a dull story anyway, in a dull world with numbers and think that kind of thing. You're not gonna turn it into like Booze Britain on Bravo in like 2002, are you? So for what the subject is, I think that they did a pretty decent job of making it entertaining enough. And I mean, I didn't phone look. I was riveted from the start to finish with it. But again, that's just me and my perchance for this kind of thing. I mean, the crazies. I mean, the whole thing about the fact that he's still there. he's still there and they still got access to him and to film him in 4K or HD cameras at the time, and they're more worried about, oh yeah, he stole secrets rather than we're all bent bastards and we're all spying on you all the time. That's the crazy part about it. And again, the fact that it's 7 years later now, and no one cares. That they'll still be doing it. They're still spying on everyone, and it just makes you kind of second guess everything that you're told and you do, and you look at all the mentalists, and you don't want to go full Matt Letizia. You never want to go full Matt Letizia, but when you've got things like this that come out that are fully true, and again, I ain't mentioned on it here yet. I don't think the Sound of Freedom where I watched, where it is based on a true story. Regardless of how that film portrays it is a true story, and there is Nazis buying kids for their own evil gains. That film, look what happened to that and how that was tarnished. When I've watched it, and there's nothing conspiratorial about it whatsoever, and you think, okay, the crazy part about this is the fact that it got made in the first place about a story like this, when there's certain other films like that one that get completely tarnished and thrown away and shit on for years for no real reason other than the fact that who is it exposing? That then the questions are asked. But yeah, I think Matt's going to be Matt's eyes are open, and he's going to be into mine and Luke's world of conspiracies and stuff like this. It's you never want to go too far with it. But the crazy part about it is he wanted me to go further, but I didn't.
Matt, what's your good, bad, and crazy?
So the good was I really like, and I like this generally as a film. A technique is into splicing in the real life with it. Yeah. I think it was really well done in this as well. It wasn't done to death, but it adds a level of believability about it, which I thought was good. I enjoyed that side of it. The Piers Morgan thing aside, which I thought was pretty hilarious. It was a good kind of technique in the way they did it. The bad, kind of in the same way that you had mentioned it, there were a couple of really hokey moments in there that absolutely didn't need to be in there to keep the plot moving along. Case in point, the American Sign Language bit. That was kind of shoehorned in there that he speaks, he can do American Sign Language purely so they can avoid being detected. There wouldn't be millions of cameras around. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So for context, there's really visible microphones everywhere being draped down really Warren Buffer, is that it? The boxing bloke.
Yeah.
As if he at any moment he's gonna be fucking Fury from the and so they do it in sign language instead to avoid being heard. There wouldn't be a million cameras everywhere, which is the whole purpose of the film, which is just stupid. And there were just some really naive bits in the film that were like that when he's leaving with the Rubik's Cube and he just chucks it and it's all hey guy, you do this for a living and it's really, really top secret and you're just going to carry this out as it just felt a bit hokey, if I'm honest with you. And the crazy really is it's Stu's point that the film was made and it was allowed to be made and distributed and everything else. So it adds the wider question, is it a red herring? Do they want us to know that there's a scandal because to hide the real scandal? What's the story behind the story?
It's the conspiracy about the conspiracy, isn't
exactly. It? Exactly. That's number one. And then B is that just none of us care anyway. To be honest, I don't know what is to gain by following my life or anybody else's life, I guess. But it's just people. It's just sad that and ourselves, we're no better, us three, that we would rather care about much more or much less important things than something that's really important like this and our freedoms and liberties. But we don't, and I can't wait for FIFA. What the hell? You know what I mean? So I guess that's the crazy in it. Also, is crazy is just how just how attracted I am to Jolie Richardson.
Oh, she's amazing.
And I completely forgot she was in Colour Out of Space as well.
Yes, of course she was. She was the monster thing, wasn't she? Yeah.
Just go back and watch the whole of Nip Tuck and watch her in that.
Yeah, what a series that is. What a series.
I never watched Nip Tuck.
Oh,
Tremendous.
Oh, there you are then. Put it on the list. It actually ends really well as well, so you can jump in out of nowhere.
I think it's probably the best of everybody who's ever appeared in that show. Like, I think it's the best work anyone's done who's appeared in that. It's fantastic. Really good. Right, my good, bad, and crazy. Right. So the crazy, I'm pretty sure it was 12 months ago today, as the podcast goes out, when we reviewed the 9/11 film. I didn't do that on purpose. I didn't try to make it. It was only when I noticed it earlier. Because I'm sure we tied it in with the first podcast after September 11th, if I remember rightly, when we did it last time. So, and those two films, that film and this film, sort of make a perfect film and sequel. Because obviously it started with 9/11 and everything that happened led to Snowden's, coming out party, so to speak. So I thought that was just kind of odd how that's worked out without any actual planning. But yeah. The good. After mostly shitting on that 9/11 film, my expectations for this were dirt low, to be honest. But I thought Joseph Gordon-Levitt did a really good job, and I was impressed with his work and how he held what was quite a standard human being story to something fairly passable for the most for me. So I was quite impressed with something that I thought was just going to be terrible again, but it wasn't. So yeah, I think that's my good, is that Joseph Gordon-Levitt carried this film to something that it potentially could have been an absolute disaster. The bad, I'm going to spoil the question of what would you recommend, because I want to talk about Citizen 4, which is the documentary that was mentioned in that Amazon.com review. So, in the hotel room where you've got the woman, the Laura Poitas, the documentarian, she was actually there making a documentary which was released and won an Oscar. It's called Citizen 4. It's released in 2014. If you like this film, you should watch that, because that actually goes into detail about the software. So it's Citizen 4. It's FOUR rather than the number, all one word. Fucking tremendous film. And they give you the details about the software. It isn't just a case of them saying, oh, this is, what was it, star key something or other. Like, and they sort of gave you that knowing wink of, you just need to remember this is a bad thing. It doesn't really matter what it's about. It's just a bad thing. They actually go into the detail about it. And realistically, that's where the story is in the detail. Like, the first time you meet Edward Snowden in Citizen 4, quite literally, the first words he says to camera is, the media tend to focus on personalities. I am not the story here. And that's kind of my issue with this film. That's why I feel like this film's bad, because he's not the story. He's just an ordinary guy who was in this quite extraordinary situation that blew up for him. The story really is, a month or so before and everything, or the fallout afterwards, not the fucking 9 years of his adult life. There's no real story there. It's a bit bland for the most part in that term. There's just not enough to make a 2-hour 15 film. So that's my issue, really, I think, with this film, is that Edward Snowden isn't the story, to the extent that even Edward Snowden says he's not the story in this. So it kind of falls a bit flat, especially when having seen Citizen 4 now. So that's my bad. Did you enjoy the film, Matt?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. It's not perfect. Probably won't watch it again, but it's definitely inspired me to look further down the rabbit hole of this genre. Because I enjoyed it for the most part, and the subject matter maybe more so than the execution, but it was still a positive in the end.
Yeah, Stu.
Yeah, of course. A very, very nice surprise having no expectation about this whatsoever, not knowing a single thing, knowing it's a relatively dull story, like you've just said, and I thought they did a pretty good job of doing what they had with the subject matter in the end. So I enjoyed it. Although I did pass it on to a couple of people as well. Obviously, they'd never heard about it either. But yeah, it's not one that's going to be like rewatched 10 times in your life, though, is it? But it's, for what it was, I enjoyed it though.
I've got two answers to this question, because the first watch, I did enjoy it. I thought it was a good film. And the second watch, it was boring as shit, because there's no rewatchability to this movie. So I think that sort of speaks volumes about it, really. I'm glad I saw this before I watched Citizen 4, because I think Citizen 4 gives you everything this film gives you, but without the boring parts. So that kind of helps quite a lot. I'm like, I'd say watch it once if you've not seen it before, because it is a fairly enjoyable film. They do well with limited resources, but I wouldn't say to watch it again. But if you have seen it, then watch Citizen 4, because that's a cracker of a film. 3 minutes of screen time. Matt, is this another void for Nick Cage? Is it good, bad?
Well, the thing, I think it has to be a dud, unfortunately. If you were putting a gun to my head, I'd say that, like, there's nothing bad about his performance. He's, like, engaging in it. I think, like, he put a little wry smile on my face, him being in it. But it's because we're doing this podcast, not because he's good. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it has to be a dud, but nothing was made worse by him being in it. And it was quite amusing that he was in it. And I think if there'd have been more of him and his relationship with Snowden and how he kind of like encouraged him to be this whistleblower, then A, the film would have been a bit better, I think. And B, would have got a yes. But I think it has to be a dud.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement for the exact same reasons. I don't know who Hank Forrester is, even having seen the film. Like, I couldn't tell you anything about that person, because his only, like, goal in life in that film is to pass on a little bit of information to Snowden. Like, it's a bit irrelevant. So, yeah, I'm in agreement with you completely. Stu, is it a clean sweep, or would you disagree?
Yeah, I mean, you could tell that he was doing this as a kind of favour. Just and we kind of know why, because of the World Trade Center thing before. But the one of the very few laughs in this film was that line though, when he's talking to him and he says, "Is it what gets you off or something?" And he talks about like learning AI, and he said, "Right then, Snowden, you've come to the right little whorehouse." And I thought,
yes,
well,
I did like that.
Again, no one else is going to deliver that line, are they? I mean, if he improvised that, I don't know, but it was perfect. And I thought it actually fits with this character. He seems a bit like, I know you said that we don't know much about him, but he's one of them people who's kind of been, again, he knew too much. He was getting too close to the truth. And so he's been banished to the broom cupboard with all the old stuff.
With the Right Said Fred LPs.
Yeah, and he's questionable Premier League 1992 footballers. But yeah, he's I thought there was enough about him to believe it, but he was pointless at the same time. Yeah, it's not null and void, but again, he was on screen, what, 3 minutes? He wasn't bad in them 3 minutes, but again, we can't be giving cameo appearances ratings, can we really?
No. Right, I've given my answer to it, so I'm going to need you two to finish the sentence. If you enjoyed Snowden, you may also like. Stu?
I mean, Snowden was kind of the one he arrested because of what could happen would be the grey man, wouldn't he? I mean, so,
yeah.
That's the consequences of this film, the grey man, and grey man doesn't need to be watched by anyone. The real answer is obviously, again, for the second time this year, is Enemy of the State, because no one fucking talks about it ever, and it is great.
To be fair, that was the other film that I would have mentioned, in fairness, but yeah, that's the closest one in thematically, I think. Matt, what do you think?
It should come as no surprise. I'm going to champion a program that I've championed a few times, and that is Utopia. It is one of only 3 TV shows that gets the perfect 10 out of 10 rating on my unappreciated scale, which is Breaking Bad, Sopranos, and Utopia. I'll read one of the reviews. I've been Googling, and I'll read the review, which just summarises the plot. So, the plot of this series is about a global conspiracy of an experiment to render the human population sterile to save the planet and the future of the human species from itself. The global conspiracy is led by an unknown elite led by Mr. Rabbit, wanting to spread a deadly virus and then immunize the population through a vaccine that contains a molecule to make this practically the entire population incapable of reproducing. So it's just it's conspiracy in a nutshell, but it's done really well. It's so violent and visceral and so blunt to the point where this review sums up why I really like it. There's a review that I'd found where it rates it really badly for the reason it being too violent. It goes, I quit about 2 minutes in. It was gross, like gross viscerally and gross ethically. It had that vibe where the filmmaker is like, how far can we push the audience into feeling violated and how fast? Fucking sign me right up. That's like proper up my street. And it's fantastic. 2 series long, should have been made into a third. They did make an American remake, but it's shit. But yeah, you owe it to yourself to watch it. And I think it's now on Prime.
Yeah,
if it's not on Prime, it's on a subscription of Prime, like one of those, but you can find it on your various means and methods. So just do yourself a favour, watch it, and let me know how you got on with it.
Super. Okay. Is this the one? It's got a yellow poster. 2013. Yeah. Okay.
Have you not seen it, Andy?
No, I haven't.
Oh my lord! Andre Gillard deserves to see this.
When you've mentioned it before, I got confused and I thought it was that Euphoria, the show with Zendaya and stuff.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think that's kind of why I sort of not dismissed it as such, but never got to the top of my to-watch list.
You are like a vampire anyway. You stay up dead late and never sleep anyway, so you've got time to watch an episode tonight, I reckon, and come back to me.
We'll see. Right, okay, so that's another Nick Cage. I mean, it feels wrong calling this another Nick Cage movie, but if you've seen this one or any of the others, get in contact with us. We're on the socials at CageFightingPod and emails to cagefightingpod@gmail.com. You might even get a reply from Matt if he feels that you're sending some spam to us. So yeah, please make sure that you're subscribed on whatever podcatcher it is that you're listening to us on now so that you don't miss an episode. And while you subscribe, if you could leave us a review, we would love you forever. So thank you very much for joining us this week. We truly do appreciate your time. And for this week, Matthew, would you like to say goodbye?
Take it easy, everybody. Look after yourselves. Slight segue before we go. We had a little bit of a treat this week, didn't we? Where we found out that we'd organically gained a fan out of nowhere that we didn't know was a super fan of the show. I'm not going to name him. I don't want to embarrass him. But he was a super fan of the show. And as far as we're aware, completely organically, maybe like through osmosis of the fan cast or something. Is that how it was?
Yeah. Hello, Ed.
Hello, Ed. So, like all good murderers, where it really is the spouse who does it. If you're out there, please get in touch because we'd love to hear from you. How you got in? If you don't know us, how you got in touch with the show, would be appreciated. But have a good week.
Stuart, would you like to say goodbye?
Ed's never even been to India either, so come on, people. We need to know you exist. Who are you? Yeah, enjoy yourself, people. Au revoir.
It's goodbye from me, and remember, be excellent to each other.